Hello, I'm Russell Sturgis. I'm the founder and principal of the Centre for Western Mindfulness, formerly known as EAP Mentor. In 2022, this year, I'm going to be focusing a series of blogs on the concept of forgiveness. Obviously, most of us are familiar with this idea of forgiveness, but for most of it's this idea of I can forgive but I won't forget. Back in the 80s, when I was exposed to A Course in Miracles and the work developed by Dr. Gerald Jampolsky, which was known as Beatitudinal Healing, there was a saying around forgiveness that said, if peace is your priority, then forgiveness is your only function. And I'm going to suggest to you that I have since found out that that's true. But in that being true, it means that we need to have a much deeper understanding of the concept of forgiveness if it is becoming our only function. And A Course in Miracles then goes on to explain that forgiveness is selective remembering. It's this idea that it's about selective means that you have a choice in terms of how you relate to what's going on. And so I open the blog and I'm going to read from it what this choice is about, and just bear with me for a moment. I know this may seem too simple, but the key to forgiveness is to fully understand that all human motive for how one thinks, behaves and emotes is either driven by the desire to extend love or is a call for help. That's it. Just two core motives. When perceived from that context, there are only two responses to these two motives: gratitude for the love extended or compassion for the suffering of another. In either situation, you maintain your inner peace. If inner peace is the thing that you value most, then forgiveness, as explained above, is your only function. So what this is saying is that the choice that you have in every moment is either to see somebody's behaviour as a call for help or an extension of love. Now that's not... I guess there's a certain amount of judgment in it, but ultimately what you're doing is observing what's going on in terms of how people are relating to you, for example. And it's either that they're loving and all of the things that aren't loving, and so that includes things like attacking, where somebody physically or verbally attacks you, if it's somebody that's made fun of you, or somebody that has made false accusations, all sorts of things that can go on, that anything that somebody's doing that isn't a loving behaviour is in fact their call for help. It's actually all about them. There's a saying that goes along the lines, we see the world as we are, not as it is. And so what we begin to understand is that when somebody's buttons are being pushed enough to want to relate to others such that it's not done in love and peace, it's about what's going on for them. Of course, what happens is that in those sorts of situations, we all take it personally. And I do talk about in the blog about when people's rights and freedoms are compromised, that justice is important. But when we understand that when somebody's in this position of doing something, that when it's a call for help, and if it's perceived or seen to be that way, that's the selective remembering. That's the point in which you selectively choose to relate to what's happening through understanding that that behaviour is their call for help. And that in that moment, you can move to the place of being compassionate. Now, You may have to be compassionate from a distance, so you remove yourself in order to be safe. It may be that you can't get out of the situation, so instead of letting your mind wander to reacting, you actually can move to the place of just holding them in the loving space, knowing that this is a call for help. That's what true forgiveness is all about. Of course, it's worthwhile pointing out that if you react to somebody in this type of situation, then that's your call for help. So in other words, if you're not extending love, which is seen as gratitude and compassion, if that's not what's happening, and you're going somewhere else, then that's all about you. And of course, the really nice thing about all of this is we get clear about whose business belongs to who. So in other words, you know what your business is and you know what their business is, depending on how they're metering out or responding or choosing to act in circumstances that present themselves. So during the course of this next series of blogs, I'm going to be looking at the sorts of things that you could be presented with in terms of people's call for help and what it is that you could do to respond to these various calls for help. This was a fairly important part in the emerging Christian tradition. If you remember, in the Sermon on the Mount, one of the things that was taught there was this whole idea of loving your enemies and blessing those that curse you and doing good to those that hate you, turning the other cheek, going the extra mile. These are really quite significant ways of relating and using forgiveness, and this was fundamental to the whole notion of a shift in religious ideology. The emergence of Jesus as a teacher was in the face of the Jewish tradition, which was very much oriented towards the whole notion of obedience being the first law of heaven. So everything that was about the Jewish religious tradition was about obeying rules and laws. And so this radical teacher turns up and starts talking about the first law of heaven being love. And of course, this was demonstrated in this notion of that the two great commandments were to love God and to love your neighbour as yourself. And so, needless to say, a lot of what was being taught in this new approach to religion was this idea of forgiveness and love. Now, this is really highly aligned with the Western mindfulness approach in terms of its definition of what mindfulness is. And of course, if you align with this, then forgiveness is going to become a very important part of how you live your life. So in the Centre for Western Mindfulness, we describe mindfulness as remembering in each moment that you have a choice to be loving or kinder to yourself, to others, and to the planet. And so when it comes to self-love and when it comes to loving of others, the primary function that is demonstrated in terms of being more self-loving and loving to others, or kinder to self and kinder to others, is being self-forgiving and forgiving of others. Because invariably, these are the two areas that we tend not to go down when we're presented with challenging situations, circumstances, and people in our lives. So we're going to explore this notion of forgiveness as a demonstration of love, and give you ways of being able to incorporate an alternative in terms of a choice that you might have in terms of how you relate to situations and circumstances that potentially can take you out of your peace. And that's whether you're driving in the traffic, whether you're dealing with situations at work, whether it's with customers or colleagues or your employer. It could be what you're dealing with in your home in terms of your relationship with your partner and your family. It even may be to do with what's going on in the politics of your country or of your region. In other words, there's so many opportunities for us to practice forgiveness, and that's because there's so many opportunities where we can be taken out of our stillness and our inner peace. And so I guess part of this is about getting clear that if you've established that peace is the thing that you value above everything else, then forgiveness is going to be your primary function. And that's going to be the foundation of everything that we share with you during the course of this next 12 months. If you want to know more about the work that we're doing at the Centre for Western Mindfulness, please look us up, and you can go onto our Facebook page, and very shortly you'll be able to find us at www.westernmindfulness.com.au. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.